Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, September 13th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the state of Pennsylvania and the establishment's pick on the Republican side for governor in 2026, now running away from her anti-abortion past as she looks to a very competitive, or maybe not too competitive, though she'd hope it to be that way, a potentially competitive race in the 2026 midterms against incumbent Governor Josh Shapiro, who's immensely popular, well fundraised, and a presidential hopeful from many people's perspectives in the 2028 election. The 2026 race is the first hurdle for Governor Shapiro as he looks to a re-elect against none other than State Treasurer Stacey Garrity, who now is running away from her past ahead of an upcoming midterm cycle. Now, thinking about what this essentially means, it actually reminded me a lot. When I first read this article from Politico published just 2 days ago, it reminded me a lot of the article that was published back in 2022 and generally just the overall coverage in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision back in 22 when Doug Mastriano, who similar to Stacey Garrity, had some very extreme beliefs on the issue of abortion and yet all of a sudden decided to stop talking about it. Now, in 2022, the circumstances of that year were that in May of 2022, the draft was leaked by whoever in the Supreme Court, releasing the Dobbs decision months in advance. By the time we reached June and towards the end of it, the Dobbs decision was confirmed, and then all of a sudden, abortion became a mainstream issue for a lot of Americans. Something that had not been touched since 1973 by the Supreme Court would find itself overturning Roe versus Wade. And so then it came into center focus. All of these candidates running for governor had to answer the question, how do you feel about a woman's right to choose and her right to privacy as protected by the Constitution? A lot of Republicans went on the deep end. They lost races over this, and Doug Mastriano arguably was no different. But it didn't mean that they didn't try to deflect the previous stances that had propelled them in Republican politics. Doug Mastriano had become a mainstream name of those voting in the Pennsylvania GOP primary because of his outlandish and outspoken views surrounding January 6th and the 2020 election and abortion rights and a variety of different issues. Same thing with Mark Robinson in North Carolina, a huge critic of abortion, tried to change the narrative on it, but obviously to no avail. Then, this time around, Stacey Garrity is saying that she is looking to rewrite her past. As Republicans are trying to springboard her into the nomination, she knows that the general election is arguably right around the corner and that she needs to make herself seem as moderate as possible. The problem for Stacey Garrity is that her baggage extends far further than what we think and what we realize in many of these races. Thinking about what we have really been trying to understand about a lot of these competitive races are the types of Republicans that are often put up in these races aren't great. They're lackluster at best and oftentimes doom the Republicans in a variety of different down-ballot races because of how poorly performing they are in these cycles. In 2022, we saw that in the state of Pennsylvania, Democrats actually got more seats than Republicans. Even though 2 years later, Republicans would go on to win 10 seats from Pennsylvania, it was the governor's race where Josh Shapiro defeated Doug Mastriano by 15 points that trickled down to Democrats winning in the United States Senate election and numerous House races, as well as win back control of the chamber in the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, to which they maintain to today. Now thinking about 2026, Stacey Garrity is worried, because her track record has a long list of things for Democrats to attack her on, but of things that might be the most salient, especially in a Democratic midterm year, is the issue of abortion. An issue that, again, Republicans saw really do in many of their candidates in the past. And so it is no secret as to why a year and a quarter out from the election, Stacey Garrity is now looking to pivot from her past. She's abortion-proofing her campaign, which essentially means she's not going to talk about it. And now that she says that if there was a statewide ban, that she would not back that state abortion ban. However, in the past, she said that she believed in anti-abortion legislation across the state and actually went so far as to say that any Democratic governor who vowed to veto any anti-choice bills that reaches that, this is about Governor not Bob Casey, I don't know why I thought that, Wolf here in the state, who was up in 22, could not run for re-election, there were criticisms from Stacey Garrity, who said that it didn't make sense. On her previous campaign website, what did she sell? Life One, Born to be pro-life, defund Planned Parenthood, all things that are very compelling to a GOP primary base. But now that the establishment has all but cleared the field for her in this race, well, it looks like in this actual election, it's going to be Shapiro and it's going to be Garrity, and she doesn't need to win primary voters anymore, so she's trying to make a pivot. But we can see through it, and many voters will too. Mark Robinson tried to run, and I'm not going to say that he lost because of abortion, but it was certainly part of it. Obviously, much more, mini soldier and all. Looking at why Doug Mastriano tried to do it for very similar reasons, he was a bit on the later end because he needed to go through what was meant to be a competitive primary, but with Trump's endorsement and his dominating, culture war, an issue-based campaign that was great for the GOP, horrible for the general, went on to lose the general by 15. Stacey Garrity is trying to do it early. But I do believe that it is immensely difficult to see her win against Josh Shapiro in 2026. The dynamics of the race simply don't make sense and are not conducive to Republicans winning in this state. Thinking about what we've seen thus far on the side of Josh Shapiro, he has not yet announced he's running for re-election, but he very much certainly will. And looking at the general election, the ratings here are likely. In comparison to many other states, we can actually take a look. Let's think about neighboring Michigan. Voted by near identical margins for Trump in the last election. What's happening in the general? Toss-up. Well, maybe it's Michigan. Let's talk about Wisconsin. Everyone talks about the big three in the Rust Belt: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Toss-up. And in many other states, this likely Dem characterization can be shared, but found in states that, okay, well, this makes sense. In a state like New York, a very solid Democratic state, Pennsylvania and New York share a characterization. Likely. If that puts things into perspective, Josh Shapiro is in a great position. And that's because, again, Stacey Garrity's baggage is quite extreme. She appeared at a rally in 2022, completely parroting the same talking points of Donald Trump and his failed re-election bid in 2020, that he won the election. She's a statewide elected official, but never receives the type of national attention she is receiving, even statewide attention that she is receiving, which allowed her to fly under the radar, having said all of these different things. Mark Robinson, who lost the governor's race in 2024, won lieutenant governor in 2020. Even though there were scandals that had come out about Mark Robinson being anti-LGBT, being anti-Semitic, all of these different things that Mark Robinson had said in the past were exposed. But nobody gaffed. Why? Because it was a lieutenant governor's race when there was a presidential election happening, a Senate election happening, a governor election happening, congressional elections happening, and a global pandemic. In 2024, Stacey Garrity did better than a lot of other Republicans, but she was the incumbent running in a state that sided with Trump primarily on issues like the economy and led Trump to victory to the presidency through a state like Pennsylvania. So I'm not shocked the Republican incumbent won in a state where the focus of the role is money. But when it comes down to governor, all of these issues that don't really impact the way you handle the Treasury in Pennsylvania, like abortion, like election interference, all of these different things, they now come mainstream and matter tremendously. And now it's going to do damage. Stacey Garrity might want to run from this because she should, but it isn't going to work. Republicans have this problem of nominating people who their baggage is so extreme because guess what? For Stacey Garrity to have even gotten to this point of being nominated, she needed to take on extreme stances. This is not a situation of Glenn Youngkin, who had money and had tangential involvement in politics and realized, okay, I want to run for office and I'm going to go for governor. Stacey Garrity is a politician in every capacity, including the one that makes her more Republican than the rest, including what made her so appealing to win those nominations early on and arguably makes her still appealing to a lot of the MAGA base. But believe it or not, Stacey Garrity is no Donald Trump. And the election of 2026 will not be like the election of 2024. Because without Donald Trump on the ballot, Republicans are not going to do well. And with a Republican like Stacey Garrity, double it and give it to the next person. The margin here for Shapiro is going to be double digits. Even the betting markets, which have been, in some cases, a little bit more high in expectation for Republicans, gives Republicans just a 9% chance at winning governor in Pennsylvania. 9% chance at winning this state. That's nothing. 9% in the state. And you think about why that is. Everyone knows Garrity is going to be the nominee, and everyone knows exactly what type of campaign, full steam ahead campaign, that Shapiro is going to run against her. This anti-abortion pass is just one of many things that I do think is very damaging for Stacey Garrity and really helps us understand exactly why the ratings on the race are the way that they are. Because they should be. The Republicans will likely not win the governor election in Pennsylvania, and with someone like Stacey Garrity, it becomes very difficult to see how it happens. This race is as cut and dry, I think, as many others, where we have found that the Republicans that have been nominated are far too extreme for the state that they are running in. Pennsylvania has seen it best. Mastriano, Dr. Oz, and even though Trump won the state, I beg you to consider, if you think that's the justification for Stacey Garrity believing she can win this race, that 2026 will not be like 2024. And had Shapiro been toe-to-toe with Trump in Pennsylvania in 24, I still think Shapiro would have won that race. Just as I believe he will win this governor race, just as we predicted he would win in 2022. And as someone who did very well in the 22 cycle, he will likely do potentially better in 2026 if the national environment aligns. I do think Stacey Garrity is a far better candidate than Doug Mastriano, but it doesn't make her good. Because coming all the way from hell can still get you in the middle of the Mariana Trench and nowhere near above water, where you need to be in what is actually a blue wave. Wow, a lot of things made sense. I wasn't even trying to say it that way. But thinking about Stacey Garrity and this article in specific, it will be one of many of Stacey Garrity changing what's on her website and her voting record and her stances officially, because now that she's running for governor, everything matters. And voters are soonly realizing that they don't really like the things she stands for or the things she stood for before she decided to change the office she was going for. And so now we'll see exactly how the voters react to it, how an eventual Shapiro campaign really frames this race, because that will be everything. But as of now, Stacey Garrity and the GOP are losing the Pennsylvania governor's race, and it doesn't look like much is going to change over the next year. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 governor election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.